Hey, ladies, welcome back. Welcome to She Unleashed Part 2. This is all about Venus's homecoming into Taurus, which is what we're going to get into today. Thanks so much for being here. I'm Eric Rosen. I'm an astrologer. And hopefully, if you're watching this, you've watched part 1 of this series. It's on the YouTube channel, Astrologer Eric Rosen. And today we're just going to keep piggybacking off of the story that I already started sharing in part 1, which is really dealing a lot with the deep transformation that feminine energy can go through at this time, especially for women. And so today is really going to, in a nutshell, kind of showcase what can happen if women choose this opportunity to really go deep into transformation of their psyche, of who they are over the weekend of April 10th through 12th. But then also maybe showing a little bit of like what the opportunity cost is if maybe that's not chosen, which is okay. Like either way, like at the end of the day, this is just a game that we're essentially playing, right? And so sometimes we can beat ourselves up and say, oh, I didn't make the right choice. But it's like, maybe it was the right choice, because essentially when you look back, I mean, this is just a series of lessons a lot of us that are learning. I was actually watching a TED Talk from Brene Brown, the shame researcher, who I highly recommend. And she was talking about how she thought that TEDx is actually a great place for people who have failed a lot, because that seems to be pretty common for people that are successful, that have a great message, a story that they can get up on stage and share, is they've went through a lot of hardships, they went through a lot of challenges. So, this astrology that I'm describing is no different. It's like whatever you do, whatever happens, like it's okay. But I wanted to like showcase the opportunity for the women that are brave, that like want to go deep with this and really truly step into their power. So part 2 is actually going to cover from April 21st until pretty much the end of April. There's a lot going on during this time period. Now, it may seem like I kind of skipped from April 12th to April 21st. That's just, there's not as much going on with Venus during that time. Sure, there's going to be some things kind of going on. It might feel a little bit like when someone, like the bartender's like blending something and they're like turning it over like side to side. It might feel like that a little bit, maybe flipping back and forth between some masculine and feminine energies of the integration work of whatever transformation that is went through April 10th through the 12th, when Venus squares Pluto. And Venus also makes a beautiful sextile to Jupiter, which is really positive, which I described in that first video. But then also flip-flopping into the masculine energy of still, almost like being career woman-like, just more outward, expression, expansion energy. And so that time, I think, is going to take care of itself, regardless of, whatever route is chosen. And so let's get into this, because on April 21st, the significance of what's going on here is not only one, well, first of all, like Venus, let me back up for a little bit. Venus enters into Taurus, its home sign, which is what this is all about, on April 14th. So it's like, yay, like Venus is home, it's great. But, it's going to come and cross Uranus. And so when Venus comes home into Taurus, it's like, oh, thank God, like I'm home. I can breathe, I can relax, my body feels good, I get to eat good food, I get to appreciate the money that I have, I get to receive compliments, I get to feel good about my beauty. But Venus coming home into Taurus, I think a little bit can also be kind of like coming into the home, and it's like it can feel really golden and shimmering if, I think, women go through this transformation. But then it might be kind of walking in and being like, well, this is my home and I like to feel good, but something feels like kind of off. It's almost like waiting for the other shoe to drop maybe a little bit, because the thing is, with Uranus at 10 degrees in Taurus, even though Venus comes into Taurus at 0 degrees, it's not going to cross it right away. Venus can still kind of sense, that it's in the same, zodiac sign of like where something unpredictable may occur. And so there's not going to be comfort for too long. And so it's like, you can have the comfort of feeling like, yes, like I did it, I went deep, and really going through this transformation got closer to a sense of divinity with the divine feminine. Or it can feel like creaky floorboards, like kind of feeling of just like kind of like feeling comfortable, but it's only like feeling comfortable like when the awareness and blind eye and being kind of in an unconscious state happens. Like you can go and you can do the things that like make you feel good and kind of almost escape into some of the physical comfort. But once you kind of come back to that awareness, if you're committed to this, path of growth, then it's going to be noticing like, okay, this something feels off about this environment, like the energy, the home. There's just because there's a lot of physical things, right, with Venus and Taurus, and so this could be anything. This could be enjoying meals. This could be feeling good about receiving money from somebody. This could be, feeling good about receiving compliments, receiving love, entering into new partnerships, feeling good about your skill set. Because I think what's going to happen is April 10th through 12th, regardless of women, how deep they want to go, I think they're going to be kind of shown a little bit of like what their deeper purpose is and their skill set. But it's like, the deeper that you go with it, the more that you're connecting it intrinsically within you, that it doesn't feel so much like an abstract concept on paper as opposed to the embodiment of it. So Venus is going to actually cross Uranus, meaning they're going to join together at that 10-degree mark in Taurus, April 21st and 22nd. And so this is what I'm kind of calling um, charged fortune. And kind of like playing the game Monopoly, because the thing is that Uranus is a very very unpredictable planet. It's the monkey wrench planet. It's U-turn energy. It's curveball energy. It's like every time you think you know where something is going, it doesn't go that way. Like just think about it. Since Uranus has been here since 2018, we've seen where our value systems are not only changing, but also like where money situations have been really unpredictable, partnerships have been unpredictable. Like when you think something where something's going in a partnership, that you can plant your roots, or that this job situation is stable, or this money situation is stable, or I'm feeling really good about myself. And then the moment you're like, yes, I'm going to feel good forever, it's like boom, nope, like hard, acute, just U-turn energy, to where you're having to face that other side of like what it's like to not feel good. And so Uranus deals a lot with the higher mind, the bigger picture. It's very spiritual planet. It's all about, in Taurus, I think shining and being seen like for your positivity, but it's almost like the positivity of being flexible, the positivity of being kind of like that song, The Rubber Band Man, if you've ever heard of that one, even though we're talking about women, but it's like that flexibility of whatever happens, it's like, can you still remain positive? Can you still remain cheerful? Can you still stay committed in your projects? Venus, Taurus energy is projects. What are those passion projects? Are you staying committed in those, even though they may kind of seem like it's taking you on a wild goose chase? Same, partnerships, the money situations, all these different things, because Uranus is trying to teach us how to ascend higher. Uranus is the path of enlightenment, if you like to chase that, or surrender to it would be more accurate. And so the best way for that to happen is to teach us that the encompassing of all aspects of self and wherever things can go, especially in physical reality with Taurus, with all these different things, money, partnerships, values, that we're not so attached to conditions, because Uranus is always going to teach, hey, things always change and evolve, but it's when you become attached to things and then they try to get pulled away from you and you don't want to let it go and things change, that's what's the cause of human suffering. So it's looking at it like, how can, even when things are changing in a sign that likes to be fixated and hang on to things, like Venus in Taurus, and Taurus energy wants to hang on to the money, it wants to hang on to its looks, wants to hang on to the love, the partnerships, the stability, feeling grounded, feeling stable, like where things are going, what the next steps are. But Uranus is more like, actually, I want you to tune into your, higher spiritual awareness for your intuitive guidance on where to go in your physical reality, especially in those areas that I keep mentioning, especially around the partnerships, the projects, the money, and the skill sets and the values. But how can you achieve that? And it's like, well, number one, Uranus rules the central nervous system, so it's getting into the body, right? It's getting a lot of movement in to feel safe and secure in the body so that you can like understand and integrate those spiritual downloads from Uranus and interact with them. So I think this is a really profound time for experiencing some massive downloads when Uranus crosses Taurus. So because Uranus has that unpredictable Wheel of Fortune like type of energy, the fact that Jupiter was just making aspects to Venus, which is optimism, good fortune, good knowledge, good teaching, good lessons, moving things forward. It's advancing the story forward in life and feeling really good about it. Now, when Venus comes and crosses Uranus, it can actually be the good kind of unpredictability, where it's like you're playing the game of life, kind of like Monopoly, and you're able to land on Boardwalk or even Parkway, and reap those rewards. But if that death rebirth cycle with Pluto isn't kind of followed over the 10th and 12th, it could feel a little bit like maybe kind of landing in jail or bankruptcy a little bit, which will probably only last like 3 or 4 days. But it's like, how many times do we want to go through these cycles, right? Of feeling like we're letting ourselves down with our expression, Venus, the throat chakra, Taurus, throat chakra, expressing ourselves, our skill set, our uniqueness of what sets us apart from the rest of everybody else with Venus being on Uranus. Because the thing is Uranus deals with just everyday people, but also like the uniqueness, the authenticity of people. And Venus is all about its worth and its skill set. And so it's like that can really be expressed fully. And I think that weekend of the 10th through the 12th is really monumental for breaking through that paradigm of like trying to get down to the uniqueness of like the true expression of the self, but maybe not quite being able to stay there with like sure footing, with Taurus dealing with sure footedness of stability. So it's one of those things. It's a really great choice. So if you've got this far and you haven't watched part one yet, I highly recommend you go and watch that, ladies. And so this is there's another thing going on here too, like with when Venus is crossing Uranus. Like this is a crazy time period. So really this Venus squaring over to Saturn is happening from April, I'd say 22nd to the 25th. And so when you've got Saturn, you're dealing with blocks. You're dealing with like heavy blocks from like moving forward, from physically moving things forward, like into the future. It's almost like I can see the future, I can taste it, I can see the story. I'm getting intuitive messages about like what it is. But Saturn's kind of like this heavy anchor that's we're kind of still weighing on us about where's our karma at. Like, have we dealt with our karma? Have we dealt with our patterns that like block us from adulting a little bit and being able to like move forward into our future? Because there's a lot of youthful innocence in the astrology, but then there's also combining like the adult like wisdom, like, hey, like, are you ready to move forward into your future? And so it's like, sure, the skill set can be there, the positivity can be there with Venus, but it's like, what about the structures? Are the structures there in place to be able to really move the story forward? This is dealing with anything. This could be business. This could be, service to clients, with it being Aquarius. It's really just anything that deals with more of the harder aspects of society, of like, there is like a reality to like service and money exchange and doing business. Like, things feel good, but they only feel so good as to like how much we're really showing up and like dealing with like what we're really here to do. Like, Saturn is the Lord of karma. Like, it wants you to achieve your destiny, move forward into your future, but it's going to tell Venus like, hey, actually you just need to go stay in like the kiddie sandbox or kiddie pool for a little bit and keep playing preschool like with your skill set. But for those that like really want to like transform and like move forward into their future and move into some just higher levels of creation, then it's like, okay, here's your license. Like, you've got a permit now. You can start to kind of wander this higher reality more, almost like kind of getting in tune, like with your unique skill set, and being able to actually start to tangibly do things with it that can create connections with people big time here. Okay. And it's attracting, like, there's a lot of creation energy. It's like, honestly, this is creating like close partnerships, but then also like more like acquaintance like type of relationships where there's not so much emotional involvement. Or it could be like still being around the same like witch harlot energy. If you know the term harlot, it's like kind of like a woman out to get your heart. So it's a little bit like, I don't want to say a succubus, but kind of like a moth to a flame, people that are just like attracted to your light. So Saturn's going to be like, okay, you're kind of either on this side and you're still going to be attracting kind of like more of the darker aspects of people's psyches, or have you truly transformed and owned your shadow side to where you're not resistant to it and therefore you're attracting it? You're stepping more into your light and getting more comfortable with that unknown, and therefore you're attracting people that want to either step into their light and are coming to you for that in terms of service, or it's attracting people that are already there in their light. And so this is like becoming in tune with partnerships of people that are vibrating higher. And who cares if you're, feeling like low on the totem pole in terms of like your skill set or how much you develop spiritually or in business or with money or how you feel about your worth or anything. It's like Saturn's like, once it lifts up that rope and lets you in the club, like you're in. It doesn't matter. Like all it takes is like that litmus test, I guess you could say, of going through this deep death rebirth cycle with Pluto, the 10th through the 12th, to get to this space of like, okay, boom, you're in. And then it just, I don't want to say like it gets easier, because there's still like an aspect of like proving yourself and still like moving forward. Saturn wants us to move forward. It wants us to move forward into the future. But it feels good like when the work is being done and we're like moving forward and we're taking care of these things. And so I would say that the blocks of where Saturn is putting you on one side or the other really depend on that work being done over the 10th and the 12th. And I would say that the abundance continues to build when it's really stepping into the true authenticity of creativity. But the creativity is only going to flow from this place and move into this more positive space if feeling in abundance. So there's this 1-2 punch of like the understanding of, yes, doing the deep transformational work, but then also seeing like the new opportunities that opens up when you get to this like 0 point, this equilibrium point of defining like, okay, this is who I was denying myself as, and this is who I am now. And so what new opportunities does this create in my life as this new person? Because now you're seeing it from things as a different person, a different perspective. You're, she unleashed, you're a woman transformed. And so new opportunities become available to you when Saturn like lifts up that rope. So this is like part of like the physical reality, like payoff that's starting to happen on the 22nd especially, but even the 21st as Uranus or Venus is crossing Uranus from doing that work, the 10th through the 12th. So, but on this day also, you've got Venus making positive aspects over to the South Node in Sagittarius. And so Sagittarius is also all about socializing and kind of being merry and feeling good and optimism. But when it's the South Node, it can be like blind optimism if the work isn't actually being done, if like there's not some like fact checking, especially with Mars that's going to be finishing in Gemini, that really wants to take a really hard, just like masculine look at like what's really going on in your environment and your mindset and the facts. Like, is it still just like a belief and an optimism and a daydream of like being, that person that has this unique high spiritual skill set is going to go out and do these great things? Or is it like actually looking at the facts of the Gemini energy of like what has to change? And so I think when Mars comes to the end of Gemini, there might be a little bit of last minute like hesitation on kind of continuing to move forward, whether that transformation was done or not. But then also maybe kind of reminds me of like when something comes out of the oven like too soon, or it's like undercooked a little bit, which is, a metaphor for the transformation maybe wasn't quite there. But maybe there's a way to like maybe kind of throw it in the microwave real quick, and you throw some like salt and pepper on it. It's not going to taste as good, but like at least like it's edible enough to where like you can like nourish yourself with still like moving forward like with this energy. And so there's going to be things that come down the line, probably maybe even over the next like few years, where like you transform these like little other like pockets, these other little opportunities, but at least like you can move forward with that. So it's making those last minute changes like in your mindset, even if there wasn't like that deep like inner transformation work happening. And so South Node and Sag can be on this, during this time, like wanting to feel good and socialize. And, but it's like not reliving like past social endeavors or past ways of like socializing. It's almost like, do you really want to go back and hang out with like the weird hobos like in the back alley, like when Saturn just like let you through the velvet rope? Or do you want to like go through the uncertainty of like what new partnerships are like coming in, like who are the high rollers a little bit that are coming? And maybe they don't come like right away, but you can at least sense it, like something is changing. So looking at those harder facts, the world, there's a lot about creativity and abundance, even though there is this restriction energy, but it's almost like restricting you to be able to channel your creativity like into the things that matter to you the most, and like not going kind of like backwards into things. But the world's going to like move forward like with or without like your unique creativity. And so there's like this kind of 3 of Cups energy of being able to share your creativity in social partnerships. And it's almost like going from a dry barren desert to kind of like the Garden of Eden a little bit. And it's paying attention to the fact that Jupiter's at the end of Aquarius. Like Jupiter's not staying in Aquarius long, and Aquarius is very sociable as well. And Jupiter has a great story to tell about connecting with people. And so it's like once Jupiter goes into Pisces, it's kind of like, okay, now you went from hanging out with like a bunch of people to kind of like in a weird, either can sometimes feel like a spiritual wasteland or just like pure divinity connection with God. But like either way, it can kind of make you feel a little bit like the teacher that kind of like taught and learned like all he could, and then had to like kind of journey back to almost like the source of like what set that guru teacher like on their journey in the first place. And I was like kind of going back to that, but it's like not feeling as like connected. It's not as fun and exciting connecting with people. Those partnerships can still be there. What I'm trying to say, ladies, is like during this time, there's just such a beautiful opportunity. Like this is the payoff. It's friendships, it's partnerships, it's sisterhood, it's socializing, it's friendships, it's connection and service. So this is what happens when that transformation is followed. And then when you get to the 25th, you've also got Mercury that's getting in the mix here, that's going to cross Uranus and start to cross Venus. And so this is almost like Mercury is dealing with seeing the facts of like just the mind's understanding of things, whereas like Mars and Gemini identifying the facts is more of just like as I'm moving forward, like I see the writing on the wall. Mercury's more like, okay, I can sit here and think and ponder and like, oh, like I see it, I get it. What was sensed is now seen. But it's like, don't wait on this to this day to like realize that it's like, oh shit, like it's time to serve all these people dinner, all these partnerships, and I didn't cook the salmon in the oven long enough, and I got to throw it in the microwave and put salt and pepper on it. It's like go through the transformation work on the 10th and 12th. And then we're going to get to a point too on the 27th where Pluto is actually going to go retrograde. And so it's almost like this portal, this kind of like underworld portal. And I talked a lot about like what Pluto represents in that first part, the first video I did. That portal kind of closes. And so it's like yeah, you can do the microwave thing and the seasoning at the last second, and then jump out of the portal and just take what you get. But then it's more like, how can the work be done at such a deep level, that 10th through the 12th, and then integration work that'll come in, kind of get mixed together as we lead into the 21st. But the deeper the work that's done, the more spoils there are, the more treasures there are. But then that's it in terms of like the treasures, I would say, when it comes to power. And so when I say treasures, I don't necessarily mean like monetary, although that is monetary is a big part of it. But it's like monetary too, in the terms of like the consciousness of the skill set, the the invisible tracks that are being laid in those ethereal realms and spirit land and the cosmos, of leading you towards greater financial abundance. But more than that, ladies, it's the treasure within yourself, of your power, of like really just like breaking free from some change and chains, and expressing the, not only, I was gonna say like the wilder aspect of women, but I would say even like the co-creation aspect of, wow, like I saw the truth, I saw who I am. I'm gonna own my creativity, my power, my beautiful queen-like regal nature, but I'm also going to use it to create for the highest good. I'm not afraid I'm going to use it for my own selfish gain. I'm not afraid I'm just going to give it away to people because it's too scary to hold that power. It truly is like standing in, I would say, even the masculine energy of owning your power, of thrusting it outward to create in the identity, and staying, and not doing the toxic feminine thing of like letting people walk all over you or give it away, but then also still the feminine aspect of the power of like receiving, from others, and all these social partnerships. So when it all comes down to it, like this is it for part two. This is like the conclusion. It's like the payoff is already starting to build. I mean, really only a couple of weeks later, after this deep transformation work and integration work happens, of like the partnerships that are brewing, that can start to show up physically in reality, but that also are, can just simply just be said, just owned, from even just the spiritual downloads of like, wow, like some partnerships are about to build, some connections are about to build, something's coming. Maybe it is in the future. That's the interesting thing about Saturn and Aquarius, is like Saturn's the ruler of time, Aquarius is the future. And time got kind of weird anyway the past, I'd say, year or so, especially when COVID hit, and in the astrology. But it's like time is different now. So, but one thing that can be for sure is like there's a karmic legacy with Saturn and Aquarius, that it's like, maybe even Saturn is in Aquarius is kind of like, well, I'm in my grandfather's house, because Saturn's home is Capricorn, and then Aquarius, it's almost like it's dad's home, so it's like grandfather's house. It's almost like, well, I know that, granddad's gonna like got a lot of wisdom and things are gonna pay off. I just don't maybe know when it's gonna happen. It's like not knowing the way around granddad's house as well, if that makes sense. So maybe we don't know like when these partnerships are exactly going to come through. Maybe we don't know when the money's exactly going to come through, but it's like energetically you can feel it and you can connect with it. And that's the thing, is like 70-80% of the ball game right now is that deep inner transformation work to align with creating a future and creating a reality, creating a story, creating a destiny that is going to manifest outwardly. It's just like, maybe you don't know when it's going to happen, but that's why there's so much importance in the astrology, staying innocent with it and not trying to like manifest like in the traditional way of like, this is what I want and this is what I want to have. Because unless it's coming through as an awareness, like it's more like heartfelt, it's probably manifesting from a place of fear, a place of lack, of like, oh, I want to manifest this thing because then when I get it, then I'll be happy. So there's more of a focus on just aligning with the vibration of how you feel inside to attract the most beautiful story possible that you probably can't even imagine, and being in that vibration as opposed to just trying to pick from a catalog from an old reality that's been ending as the tower is falling. And it's like, why pick something out of a catalog? Why pick an antique that's meant to be buried in the rubble of the tower falling when there's a such much more beautiful reality that hasn't even been seen yet and that's coming, especially over the next 20 years. But these are these deep internal shifts that are taking place now. And part of She Unleashed is stepping into leadership, of being able to lead society forward whenever shit is continuously hitting the fan with uncertainty, as it's already doing this year. But being in the certainty of knowing your unique skill set, your unique worth, your unique power, accepting that things are uncertain and unpredictable in terms of like where the story is going, but the certainty comes from the skill set and the power. And so that's all the leader is. A leader doesn't, a war general doesn't know who's going to win or what the other side's going to do, but he's confident that he's trained his troops. He's confident in his ability to make quick decisions, quick-witted decisions, to be prudent, to look at the future, to understand where things are going. Because that's one thing I want to mention too, like prudence. It's like, with all these value systems changing, with all this Uranus, Venus, Taurus energy, it's like, do we really want to keep betting on American values that are based on the tower falling? Or do we want to get ahead of the game and plan for the foresight of the future that Spirit is giving us, those downloads of how to change our mindset that's been programmed to think in a certain set of values, to kind of pay it forward so that whenever the wheel does finally turn and things align more in a physical reality sense of what we're experiencing on a more emotional and spiritual level, that, oh wow, we were just ready. We were going through training and we're ready, and now we're the people that lead because we walked that path. We were the way showers, right? Or is it, be that person that still wants to hang on to like corporate America values, or just turning a blind eye to your intuition and your skill set, or even getting lost in too much emotion, of like, I just want it to feel better. And it's like, I mean, do I really need to like give a lesson on like totality, of like light and dark? It's like, we got to own all of it. Like that's part of, what that transformation is, with Pluto squaring Venus on the 10th and 12th and sextiling Jupiter. That the true divine feminine in leadership, comes from a lot of just deep compassion and reverence for all of it. How you can't just face it. You can't really, if you say like this thing's bad, or that thing, you shouldn't do that thing, or this part of me is bad, and like you're never willing to open up to owning it, that shadow side, either within yourself or as you see it actually projecting outside yourself and others in the world, then you're not really walking a divine feminine path. And this is all about being unleashed, is like unleashing the shadow side in terms of like owning it, and not like putting the shadow out there as in like an aspect of hurting people or judging people, obviously, but it's more just like knowing your energetic boundaries, not letting people walk all over you, knowing how to say no. Like women are faced with a lot. They get hit with a lot of, energies, especially from the toxic masculine, which is why I emphasize avoiding toxic masculine energy the 10th through the 12th and kind of going into a cocoon a little bit. So I'm just going to leave it at that. I don't think there's anything else I really want to cover here. I mean, the moon's gonna do what it does. The moon changes signs every 2.5 days, but so the emotions are going to ebb and flow. I think that's another little astrology nuance to understand too for women. Is just like, the emotional roller coaster. I mean, the fact that the moon is not only changing signs of consciousness, zodiac signs every 2.5 days, which is why we never feel the same way every day of the week. And then the moon makes geometric aspects in astrology, which is a lot of what astrologers are looking at to other planets. That's why our emotions are like always changing. So your emotions are going to ebb, they're going to flow, they're going to, but it's like not letting them rule over you, but then also like observing and feeling them, but not letting them like be like the ultimate decision maker. I would say really the ultimate decision maker, of course, is you, but it's also from an astrological standpoint, Saturn does deal with decisions, and with it being in its granddad's house, it's kind of like a lot of the decisions are being more based on long-term outlook, much longer term foresight. I would at least 7 to 10 years, if I'm being real, of like who are you going to be 10 years from now, as opposed to how can I just feel better on a Friday, which I do that shit too. It's just natural human behavior, because Mercury can only see like kind of the facts of what it's feeling and what's in front of it, and the mind just wants its comfort. But that's why Uranus is getting in this mix of all this astrology I've been describing, of seeing like that bigger, higher, wider picture of where things can go. All right, ladies, I love you all. Part 3 will be out soon, which is going to actually get into early May. So this was part 2. This was Venus coming home to Taurus, and like what that means specifically for this year and during this time of what's going on in the astrology. And so Venus will still be home as we get into May, but then it's going to be looking at a part 3 of like what's Venus being faced with in May, and just continuing to kind of cap the story, I guess you could say, like getting to the watchtower of the kingdom a little bit of the importance of this transformation that is available to people on the 10th through the 12th. And then part 4 is going to be, I'm going to be putting it out specifically for the guys. I don't know how I'm going to do that exactly yet. I just know that that's something that's important to look at it from more the masculine perspective for the men, for the fellas. So thanks so much for tuning in, ladies. I hope you enjoyed this. Let me know. And yeah, take care. You've got this. Like, whatever you choose, like this isn't about like being like you've got to do this or do better or whatever. This is just more about the support to be like, hey, like you've waited for your time. Like you've waited thousands of years, the consciousness of the feminine to like rise up. And it wasn't going to come without like a few challenges, but you have all the supports in place. Uranus, spirit, whatever you want to call it, your spirit guides, your angels, Jesus, Mary Magdalene, the divine feminine archetypes, Isis, like all of them, they're all there supporting you. And at this point, all of them, they're basically just saying it's number one, you have the freedom to choose. You have that. Although, yeah, there's some challenges, but you can choose. And then there's, just the love and compassion to get you through it. Like all the tools are there. And it might feel a little bit scary, but like you can do it. But it's like no matter like what you choose, like it doesn't matter, like just celebrate life like as it is, like no matter what it is, but at least be informed in making the choice and like not a victim, because victims suffer, and just saying like, okay, this is what I want, and then just fully committing to it. And if it's like, you know what, this is just like too much like deep work and deep shit to get into, and it's uncomfortable, and it's like, when's it going to be over? And it's like maybe 20 more years, not to scare anybody, but that's the thing with Taurus. It's like it's momentum, like the quality and the positivity that comes from momentum. When it's like, oh, this kind of was hard to get going at first and kind of sucked maybe because it took so much like effort in the beginning. But then like once you get the ball rolling, it feels good. It builds confidence. So you can do this. Love you all. Take care.